Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. What movie are you going to do today, Napoleon? Whatever movie I feel like I want to do. Gosh! And this is episode number 197, and in this episode, Amy Pascal and David Heyman close deals to produce the next James Bond film for Amazon MGM. The boys will weigh in. The new season of Andor is coming soon. We will discuss the trailer. And then, girls only want podcasts that have great skills. We take our first request for a film review. Hey, Chris. And we discuss 2004's Napoleon Dynamite. Vote for Pedro. Gentlemen, how's things going?
Things are good. Fighting a little bit of a cold. I'm not doing a bit and impersonating the character we're going to be talking about tonight. So if I sound nasally or if I'm breathing out of my mouth, it's not an impression. It's just getting over a cold. I'll be back to my silky voice sooner rather than later.
To James.
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 James. Right. Back to work.
Amy Pascal, David Heyman closed deals to produce the next James Bond movie for Amazon MGM. Raymond, I want to go to you first, and if you can tell me a fun fact about Amy Pascal.
Oh, a fun fact about Amy Pascal. She worked on the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, so I think that's a plus.
Uh-huh. Any other notable film that she spearheaded that might pick your particular interest?
I know what he's hinting at.
I'm thinking. I'm like, oh shit, I'm drawing a blank.
I think Ray
Are you drawing a blank?
to-
I thought you'd be chomping at the bit to rip this one to shreds.
He prefers to ignore the fact that this movie even exists.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Oh my
either that
God.
or he has just rounded out. Raymond, I'm gonna have to pull out the doll and you're gonna point to where it hurt you, okay?
No. 2016?
Yeah.
Well, that's why 2016 never happened. I ignore that fact. Oh man, you just burst my bubble for tonight.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
I literally didn't put that together until you just said that. I'm like, oh shit, I know what he's saying now. Yeah. Let's hope that that's not the case. But I did enjoy Tom Holland as Spider-Man. So if she sticks to that route, great. If she goes the Disney route and just has to butcher everything and feminize everything, I'm going to be really pissed, especially with the James Bond series. So yeah. Let's hope that's not the case.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this?
Just like everything else since the Amazon takeover, I'm going into this cautiously optimistic. I could not stand that 2016 Ghostbusters movie, but I do like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. So she's got a nice resume. I mean, nobody bats 1,000 in Hollywood. Everybody has a clunker. Even Steven Spielberg made 1941. So nobody has a perfect filmography. But this other guy, he did the Harry Potter series. So if anybody knows how to make a successful British franchise, it's probably him. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. My biggest fear is they're going to milk it to death, and they're just going to keep shoving James Bond stuff and keep going off on wild tangents rather than give us a Bond movie every 2 to 3 years, which I think that's what most fans want, rather than this spin-off or this prequel or this TV show. Nobody's a bigger James Bond fan than me, except for maybe you two guys. But I don't want to see Bond get diluted the way Star Wars has.
You know what's funny?
Well
it's
said.
interesting. I found it kind of interesting and timely that just a couple days ago, Raymond Benson announced he will be doing a Felix Leiter novel, which I kind of was like, wow, this was kind of exactly what people were getting nervous about, that we're going to start doing these spinoffs. And I'm not saying this is that, because this is obviously a book. You know, this is through Ian Fleming Publications, not having anything to do with the Amazon MGM. But but I kind of felt like everybody's response to that was, oh my God, this is great. You know, back to the golden age of Bond, the 90s Raymond Benson novels. So I thought that was kind of interesting and timely, and I kind of felt like maybe people are a little more open to different possibilities in that respect. But one of my takeaways from this was, first, there was that bit of caution because, again, I'm not a huge I've never seen any of the Harry Potters, but I understand they're very good, and I'm probably a outlier on that one. I'm sure most people are very familiar and very happy.
And the series gets better as it continues.
Yeah, I mean, I've
sure.
never heard anybody complain about it. So, and you know, the Amy Pascal stuff, to your point, there's a lot of hits, there's a couple misses, there's a couple weird ones. But what I kind of walked away with more than anything was like, okay, but these are people who know Hollywood blockbusters. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of alleviates the fears that a lot of people have, like, oh no, is Bond going to become just a streaming product? No, we're going to get Hollywood blockbusters. So that's a plus.
Can I ask you guys a question? Generally, I'm quality over quantity, but as Bond fans, we've been starved for so long for content. Are you worried that you're just going to be saturated in it? It's going to be too much, or that the quality is going to, degrade because we're getting so many different things? If that's even the case.
That does have me mildly concerned. I'd rather have really good Bond movies every 3 or 4 years. If you look at like the 1980s when John Glenn was making the Bond films, you had one every 2 to 3 years. They were all pretty solid movies. Some are better than others, but it was a nice cadence, a nice level of quality. None of them were awful. None of them were spectacular. Casino Royale, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, but they were solid. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is every 2 to 3 years, solid Bond flick.
But nothing in between?
I mean, I think to Joe's point, they can play with that kind of stuff in the books. They could play with that kind of stuff in video games. They could play with that kind of stuff. They already do a lot of really creative, and I'm not super familiar with them, but they do a lot of really creative things with the comic books. And I trust Raymond Benson to handle the Felix Leiter character and the James Bond property as a whole with the respect it deserves. He wrote some of the best Bond novels there are, so he's the right guy for that job.
I heard a rumor. It might have just been today that I saw this. I saw one little exchange, and I take it with a grain of salt. So I have no clue if there's any validity to it. But I heard a rumor real quick that they were actually talking to two different actors. One was an adult and one was a little younger, thinking that maybe they would do like another series of younger James Bond. And again, haven't a clue if that has any merit. But, upon hearing it, I'm kind of feeling like I don't think I would mind that necessarily. I mean, again, I've people have raved to me about the young James Bond books of recent years, and I've heard nothing but good things about them. So that could be an avenue that I wouldn't mind. So I'm not completely. I'm with you where I feel like let's start with just getting a good Bond movie every 2 years before we start to tinker and play and go too crazy. But again, I am open to certain things. So we'll see how that goes.
I like that. Give it like a slow burn before it starts picking up speed, and then maybe
Hopefully.
Roll out. Yeah, I dig it.
And to use a Harry Potter metaphor, they need to get the Muggles excited about James Bond again. The regular cinema goers need to get really amped about, oh, wow, there's a new James Bond. There's a new James Bond movie coming. I love James Bond. Like, my dad used to take me to see James Bond movies. We need that enthusiasm back. And unfortunately, the last couple kind of turned away those casual moviegoers.
I came with you to be part of something. The Empire cannot win. It's a different kind of mission. If it goes up in flames, it will burn very brightly.
But if I'm giving up everything, I want to win. We have to. We must stand together. We will be crushed.
Resistance is absurd.
It's a weapon. They're building a weapon. The monster will come for us all.
Revolution is not for the saying. You're right here, and you're ready to fight. There's a future here for those who dare. Welcome to the rebellion.
The new trailer for Andor Season 2 just dropped, and I have to tell you guys, I don't know what your thoughts on this, if you guys are excited about this, have any interest in this. I know we've kind of all been abused like a battered wife by the Star Wars franchise of recent. But I have to tell you, I will say this. I did see the first season of Andor. I did like it enough. I kind of didn't go gaga like a lot of people did, but I thought easily, it wasn't even close, the best film that came out of the Disney Star Wars was easily Rogue One. So I thought that was a tremendous film, and I was a little I was kind of sad that a lot of people didn't take to it, but I really thought it was great. I think a lot of people do think it was probably the best of the bunch. So when I saw this trailer for Season 2, and you could see how they're inching closer and closer to the events that happen in Rogue One, I did get a little excited. So I'm kind of feeling pretty good about it. What did you guys think?
I'm suffering from a little bit of Star Wars fatigue right now, and I haven't watched the first season of Andor yet. The last thing I watched was either Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Book of Boba Fett, or maybe The Mandalorian Season 2, but right in that era. So I'm a couple of TV shows behind. But I did watch this trailer, and I like a lot of the characters that they're bringing back into, like, we all liked Krennic. We all loved the interplay between Krennic and Darth Vader. So I think that has me intrigued. Maybe I have to check this one out. And everybody that I've spoken with who's watched Andor says that this is the one. If you're going to stay engaged with the Star Wars property, Andor's the way to go. It's a little bit more adult. It's a little bit more complex. So I will give it a shot.
I didn't know what Andor was until you said I should check out these trailers. So I started with the second one because that's what you asked me to look at, and I was like, oh, this looks really intriguing, but I have no idea what's going on. So I watched the first trailer, and I'm like, oh, you got Forrest Whitaker in there. You have Big Daddy Skarsgård, the father to all those great actors. I'm like, okay. And then you have not Pedro Pascal also in there. So I'm like, okay, it does look good. I did like Rogue One, and I would watch it again because I don't remember much about it, but I do remember thinking like, okay, this is a Star Wars movie. So I'd be intrigued to watch it.
Yeah, I think this one kind of encouraged me to give Rogue One another watch, and maybe even the first season of Andor another watch, because again, it was fine, but nothing really stuck with me after once it was done. So I might have to give that a watch again before this, because I am a little jazzed by this trailer. So I got my fingers crossed.
The last time I watched Rogue One, I found it had a little bit of a drag in the middle, and I kept waiting for, all right, come on, let's get going.
Yeah.
Come here, Darth Vader. Like, I want to see the cool stuff now. I want to see the invasion. I want to see the war. That's the stuff that I think we remember most fondly about Rogue One, and it all happens in Act 3. So when you watch that movie, you leave with a really good feeling about it, because Act 3 is so good. Yes. Act 2 is a little rocky in that movie, and I think we tend to look at that movie with nostalgia glasses because Act 3 is so good.
Yeah, I will totally concur with that. I remember feeling very similar the first time I saw this in the theater, but I was so... I kind of nerdgasmed at the ending, the finale. I mean, when they did those shots, those alternate takes with the same actors from the first one, I was going bananas. I mean, it's terrific. Was like, I felt like that was my first real feeling of Star Wars since maybe the 80s, honestly. Everything's been such a rocky road. So yeah, this really kind of, that really got me going.
What are you gonna do today, Napoleon?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh! How was school? Worst day of my life? What do you think?
In small-town Preston, Idaho, awkward teen Napoleon Dynamite has trouble fitting in. After his grandmother is injured in an accident, his life is made even worse when his strangely nostalgic Uncle Rico shows up to keep an eye on him. With no safe haven at home or even at school, Napoleon befriends the new kid Pedro, a morose Hispanic boy who speaks little English, and together the two launch a campaign to help Pedro run for class president. Written by Jared and Jerusha Hess, directed by Jared Hess, 2004's Napoleon Dynamite. Raymond, tell me about Napoleon Dynamite.
I remember this movie differently now, looking back. What in the art house indie film fucked it up? Oh my God. Who thought it would be a good idea to take the creepy gummy bear girl on the school bus at the end of Ferris Bueller, turn her into a male character and give him a feature-length film? That's what I got from this.
Jesus Christ! What the fuck? You just ruined a movie for me.
Sorry. That's how I saw Napoleon Dynamite second time around. I'm like, this is exactly that. This is that weird girl with "You Want a Gummy Bear" at the end of Ferris Bueller on the school bus. And they just ran with it with this weird town, indie vibes. The plot, he wants to be class president and just all the awkward, weird shit that happens in between. I remember this movie so differently. I remember this being and becoming a cult classic. It's so quotable and it was so enjoyable at the time. I don't know if now I'm 40, I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, this was shit. Or I don't know. This was a complete 180 from what I remembered it being.
Well, I watched the Joaquin Phoenix Napoleon Bonaparte movie. No, I'm just kidding. This movie hit at just the right time for me. When this movie came out, I was a junior in high school. So just like the way it became such a huge part of American pop culture in that moment does make me wonder, like, was it of its time or does it hold up forever as the classic that it was lauded as being back in 2004. I think there's something to what you're saying. It is of its time, and it kind of set off a wave of a certain type of quirky, twee teenager movie. Kind of Garden State came before, but Juno came shortly after this movie, and Youth in Revolt and Little Miss Sunshine both came out shortly after this movie. Pretty much Michael Cera's entire filmography. So it is like, it's definitely a trailblazer, but it's something that was of its time and hasn't really stayed in like the popular zeitgeist.
Okay. I don't know. I watched this and honestly, I kind of found myself chuckling every bit this time around as I did the first couple of times that I saw it. I mean, I kind of feel like this movie is kind of its own weird animal. And I don't know. For me, it really did. I was just giggling and chuckling again like I did the first time.
You also have your medical marijuana card, Joes.
I mean, I don't know. I just kind of found it's so funny. Well, first off, like when I watched it again, there was things that I was noticing. Like, for example, this is going to sound like a very silly, but like I was looking at the paint on the lockers. The lockers have a very specific color scheme, that kind of like dark blue, light blue, and the orange, the creamsicle orange. And I kind of was thinking, I said, I think that this film is more crafted than it might seem. Like, this almost seems like this was somebody who just decided to do like a funny little school project kind of indie film and just got really lucky, kind of got the right guy to hit the right tone and it just kind of resonated. But I do think there is a lot more work into it than that. put it this way. You know what it kind of vaguely reminds me of? Like, there's a scene. Remember when he calls his brother? He's like, Kip, can you bring me my chapstick? My lips are real bad. Right. And if you watch the scene, Kip is sitting there. He's got the cheese grater, the big giant block of Velveeta, and he's grating the cheese onto the chips on the side. And if you watch, they cut back and forth. All of a sudden, he's not grating it anymore, but all of a sudden, there's a gigantic pile, like a foot high of cheese on the things, and you're like, wait, how did that just happen? And you have to watch it a couple times to even notice it. I was having flashbacks of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and again, it's one of those, like, you guys know this, but like a lot of people might not, that this was actually a Tim Burton film.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But it just plays off like a total indie, no budget kind of a movie, right? And there's weirdness in it that I sometimes I say to myself, is that there on purpose? Like, or is like, it seems like for example, in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, there's a scene when he's driving the car at night. He's got the guy next to him who just broke out of jail. He's driving at night and he's watching the signs go by, like he's passing the signs and saying like falling rocks, whatever. Yes. When you look closely, you could see the sign being dragged on a track next to the car. Right? The car's totally still. They're obviously in a studio, and they just drag the signs past on this track. And you notice that, and you think like, oh my God, I just found something. But then you're like, wait a minute, maybe we're meant to see stuff like that. Maybe it's little weird things like that we're supposed to sort of catch after a while or something or other. And I kind of feel like that there's a little of that in here, where I feel like, there's a lot of kind of things that you notice after a while, things in the background or things that just sort of fall into place funny. So yeah, I kind of feel like this film probably has a lot more craftsmanship than most people would give it credit for. It's not just a weird, quirky, just people doing weird stuff and we're laughing because he's kind of a goofball. I think it's pretty well done and pretty well made.
I agree. I like this movie. I think it's very, very funny, but is it because I grew up when people were wearing the Vote for Pedro or Vote for Summer t-shirts? And there was a day where my high school cafeteria served quesadillas and tater tots. Like, we're having a Napoleon Dynamite menu. It was that much of a hit for high school kids in the mid 2000s. But if you showed it to somebody in high school today, would they think it is as funny as I do? Because I just remember. Did you have to be there? Is this you had to be there in order to get the joke kind of movie? And I can't answer that question.
I mean, it is kind of timely. Like, for example, the brother, like Kip, Napoleon says, thanks for eating all the friggin' chips, Kip. He's like, Napoleon, don't be jealous because I've been chatting with babes online all day. Like, so you knew this was serious. Yeah, I mean, this was the early days of the internet, so to your point, I kind of feel like I wonder if people today watching it for the first time would sort of get that. Like you were really, I don't know how to say this, but like the guys who were kind of trolling the internet back then was a little weird.
Yes, so it was certainly a different time. If you said that, I'm gonna go hang out with this person I met on the internet, people looked at you weird. Now I get together with people that I know through the internet all the time, and it's the most normal thing in the world.
Like I feel like a kid in high school today.
Right.
I feel like a kid in high school today, if he said he was chatting with babes all day online, nobody would even blink. Like that would probably be commonplace in high school today. Whereas like when we were younger, it was like, what?
Absolutely. You jump into a chat room and somebody would, the first thing they would say to you is ASL ? Right. Who remembers what A/S/L means?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny we're talking about this because I was just talking to Bud West on his podcast, and we were talking about the early days of the Bond community, and we were saying like I can remember like Prodigy message boards, like that's how old I am, and that's like how far back I can remember some of the stuff. So yeah, I can kind of sympathize.
Napoleon, this is Pedro.
What kind of bike do you have?
It's a sledgehammer.
Dang! You ever take it off any sweet jumps?
What are you drawing?
A liger.
What's a liger?
It's pretty much my favorite animal.
I don't know, Ray. Would you show this movie to your kids?
I would, because it's pointless.
Mm.
The humor I think is so dry. I remember it being so different though. Like I said, like it's a cult classic at this point. But like I still quote it, and like people have told me they're like, "Dude, you hated that movie." I'm like, I didn't like. I thought it was okay at the time, but now I'm just like, ugh. The humor's. I get the humor. I mean, I grew up on Kids in the Hall, and Monty Python, stuff like that. So like I can go dry British humor. I can do any type of humor. But this one just was not hitting me the second time around. Maybe I was just in a bad mood or something, but I'm just like, ah, yeah, that's right. Gets hit with the football. Okay. Rex was, I think, one of my favorite parts of the film. Sensei Rex,
He's great.
from he,
Rex
that was
Kondo.
awesome. Right. For just $300. Uh, but but I mean, like most of the other stuff just wasn't resonating the way it did. So I think just I don't know. It's when did this come out? In 2004. So
Hmm.
I was two years out of high school. Now I'm 40. Maybe my taste have just matured, but still, you can pull my finger and I'll think it's hilarious. So I don't know.
You know what's funny? We've been talking about. I feel like we kind of keep going back to the discussion about the shelf life of comedies, and
Hmm.
I think we've talked
Mm,
about it in terms of just going back to an old comedy, watching it today. Does it work the way it did? We've also talked about it in the context of like doing sequels to comedies and how can you get that spark again. I think for a lot of people it's hard. I find that for me the shelf life is pretty good. I mean, I feel like if I watch a comedy and if I giggle my face off the first time I see it, I can put it in that mason jar, twist the lid tight, and when I go back to it, I'm giggling all over again. And it just has a lot to do with the fact that I'm kind of feeling the way I felt the first time I saw it. It doesn't always work that way, I suppose. I mean, there are some movies I will go back to and I kind of say, yeah, maybe not as much as I for some reason, like this time around, it wasn't really doing as much for me. I'm trying to think. There was something recently that I watched again that I hadn't seen in a long time. Actually, I find that with books a lot for some reason. I find that more with books. That's what it was. I think I dug up once or twice recently a book off the shelf that I read ages ago. And I said, I really liked it. I want to go back to it. And this time I'm not getting that same vibe at all. But I find with movies, it more or less should work. Like I do find myself kind of able to go back and just kind of giggle as much as I did the first time around. And I kind of feel like this is very much an example of that, right? I find it to be timeless. I mean, I can honestly watch Young Frankenstein, Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, and I will honestly laugh as hard this time around and it's weird because it's almost like somebody's telling you, like a murder mystery doesn't do that for me. Like once I know it and I know how this ends, if it's a big twist, then the effect is obviously not the same. But the comedies, even though I've heard the jokes before, even though I've this is sort of it's got that, how do I say this? The same way we talked about the quotable movies.
Hmm.
I kind of feel like when
this was one of yours, I think.
Oh yeah, big time.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah, this was, and I find that when they're on that quotable movie list, this is partially why. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like it's like it's like a song almost. There's a ring, a melody. There's something you're humming along to. And I feel like when you're watching a comedy and you're watching the funny parts, and even though they're coming and you're anticipating the funny jokes or whatever, it still kind of works in the same way that listening to an old song does, if that makes sense.
A really good timeless comedy is one that you can watch multiple times when you know the joke is coming and still laugh at it. And there are some movies where the comedy comes only from the shock. And those are the ones that don't hold up. This one, the humor comes from performance and writing. So it holds up really well. Like, it's still funny. I know the way he swings his leg after getting thrown into a locker is coming.
Oh,
It still makes me laugh. It's the performance that's funny. It's like watching like one of those Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin movies where it's just like the physical performance is the humor, and I like that. It does stay funny even though you know it's coming.
It doesn't do that for me. Would you put what's his name? John Heder plays Napoleon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you put him up there with Bill Murray as Ray Stantz? As
No.
far as no.
Not even close. But then again, I haven't really for some reason this guy didn't exactly take off. And I wonder why that is. Like I know he did the one was it Blades of Glory, with what's
he did Blades of Glory, yeah.
And that's one of those movies where you watch it more than 3 times, it's not anywhere near as funny as Napoleon Dynamite is the third or fourth time. I mean, I've seen Napoleon Dynamite 100 times, but I haven't watched it in 20 years, so it was almost like seeing it with a fresh set of eyes.
I think he got American pied in the face. The Jason Biggs problem. You know, he's always going to be known as the guy that, you know, fucked a pie. He's going to be known, he's typecast as Napoleon Dynamite, the goofy guy, and he just had that short run. I think now, I think he might, I looked up his IMDb. He's done a few like voiceover things for like kids films, animated stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Blades of Glory and, the Benchwarmers with, what's his name from Jackass was like what he's done, or not, Jackass, not Johnny Knoxville.
Rob Schneider.
There you go, Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider from like basically all he's done as far as I could tell. Everything else was like animated series doing voiceovers. But I just think it's that typecast type thing. Once you do a role that's iconically bad, but that people enjoy, you're just kind of stuck in that role. Just like Jason Biggs from American Pie. I mean, what has he done since that series?
It is one of those roles that will follow you forever because it's so out of the box. It's like nothing else that it makes you question how much depth does this guy have in his acting range. You know, are you going to see him in like a Mission Impossible movie? Probably not. He's only going to do goofball comedies.
You know what's funny about this guy though? The funny part about this, when you see John Heder not doing the Napoleon Dynamite shtick, to me he looks a lot different. Like I almost feel like if I saw him on the street, I don't think I would recognize him at all, even though I've seen this movie a million times. You know what I mean? Without the kind of like body wave, perm, curly hair, and the glasses, I don't know. And just in the moon boots and just constantly having his mouth hanging open. Like he's like, you want to go over, like grab his chin and be like, dude, close your mouth. But when he's not doing that, I don't, so I mean, like in some ways he's reminding me of Billy Bob Thornton when he did Sling Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he did Sling Blade, he was so good in that. I kind of felt like it was almost one of those things where like that guy has to, I can't picture him out of this character or whatever, but then you saw him in other things and he's like a totally different guy. Like, you wouldn't even know that was the same guy from Sling Blade, you know?
He's not even the same guy. He's actually Taylor Swift. Have you seen that conspiracy theory?
No, but
actually, yes. I think I have, yeah. Well, I've seen like the memes where it's like, you haven't seen these two together. They both have that same thing with the mouth,
mouth
just
and
a
the
little
eyes.
bit, the teeth. Yeah. Yeah, totally. What did we think of Uncle Rico? Did you guys recognize him when you first saw this?
I've seen him in other things, but I can't place him. And I know that he's wearing the 80s hairstyle and
bad
mustache.
red, yeah.
But I've definitely seen him in other things. So I will rely on you to tell me where.
Same.
I when I first saw this, and this is going to be a really obscure thing, and I'll be shocked if anybody even knows this, but like I remember seeing him much more when he was younger, and the one that stuck out for me personally, he was in Fright Night 2. Did you ever see Fright Night 2?
No.
A long time ago, but yeah.
Did you ever see Fright Night? I know I'm showing my age here, but
yeah, I'm not familiar.
With even the original Fright Night? Oh wow. No. Fright Night I'm kind of shocked that you guys have to watch Fright Night. In fact, I might even put this on the list of things we need to review.
All right.
Because, Fright Night was like an 80s vampire movie, and it was really good. And the sequel was almost like a direct to video thing where the first one was real popular, but for some reason, the second one, they did it almost very much under the radar. But I thought it was really good. I don't know why they did that, because it did not feel lower budget. In fact, it might have even felt a little higher budget. And I kind of felt like it was a very good natural progression of the story. But anyway, but Uncle Rico, I think he's a werewolf in this, but he's younger and so yeah, he was actually really cool. That was what I saw him, but I had seen him in some other things. But by the time this came out, he was looking a little older, and it took me a second going, what, who is that guy? That guy looks familiar. And I was like, oh, it's that guy. Why is he wearing a rug and a bad mustache?
Mustache. His mustache might have been the best part of the movie. That thing was excellent.
That's a
From a firefighter. As a firefighter, I will tell you that was an epic mustache.
There are a couple of people who were up for parts in this movie that were much more noteworthy, and I think the reason that they're not in it is because it would have boosted the budget too much. But at one point, Jake Gyllenhaal was approached to play Napoleon Dynamite, and I don't think the movie would be nearly as funny if you had somebody that good-looking playing this goofball. I think it has to be like a no-name, goofy-looking guy in order to carry off the same type of humor.
Yeah.
Well, how long after Bubble Boy did this come out? Because Jake Gyllenhaal was a goofy dude in that one.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's okay. True. Yeah,
that might be why he was approached.
That was
probably right around the same time.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. But you're right. Now that you say that, yes, that's the era of when he was doing stuff not too different than this. So yeah, okay, now I see it. I will say that the Uncle Rico going back in time stuff was, I got it started to wear a little thin after a little while. I'm like, all right, we get it. It's like I think the character of the overaged guy who's really stuck in his high school years, kind of a very classic caricature. So fine, and it works in this, but stop. I at that point, when he literally buys the thingy to off the internet to, like, electrocutes himself, whatever. I mean, all right, now we're trying to fill some runtime, I think, a little bit.
But
it was an Al Bundy knockoff.
Yeah,
it was directly Al Bundy, rehashing his high school football days.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just trying to steal that thunder, and let's face it, he mastered it.
Yeah, we all know that kind of guy who
exactly
lives
That's
in his
exactly
glory days. And Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about it. Somebody who's like, back in my younger days, and I was this super athlete, and if it had only gone this one other way, I would have been a huge star. We've all met that guy.
Right, still wearing his football jacket. And he's pushing 40.
Correct. And it does set up one of the funniest sight gags in the movie after Napoleon tries the time machine, and then Uncle Rico comes out grabbing his crotch and says, like, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I also have to say, too, I've heard, I love the setting of the film is kind of half of the movie, if you think about it. Like I was hearing the writers talk about this film at one point, and they were talking about how a lot of this came from how they grew up. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of in a very religious household where Dang was like the curse, like that was as much of a curse, and I kind of feel like, we were talking earlier about, like, Ray, would you ever let one of your kids watch this? And it's like, the movie is so funny because it's oddly innocent, I mean, there's not it is one of the most innocent movies I think I've ever seen that would make me laugh, like, as hard as I did, I mean, it's so funny how they just, there's not a single cuss word in this. I don't think there's anything close to a cuss word in this.
It's a higher level of comedy to be sweet and wholesome and still be hilarious. I mean, anybody can make dick and fart jokes and get a cheap laugh, but to be this funny and be this wholesome, that takes some real talent.
What was wholesome about it?
The whole movie.
You guys are losing it. What was wholesome? All right, tell me what was wholesome about it.
Well, what was wholesome about it?
It's a nerdy kid going through the awkward phase of mid to late high school and trying to learn how to approach women and the travails that come along with that. Dealing with quirky relatives and puberty and all of those things. It's all there.
Eh.
Well, what do you,
I just thought it.
why
I
do
like
you
it better
say?
when we disagree.
I do too. Um, no, I remember this movie being a lot of fun and super quotable, but this time around, I'm like, oh my God. All right, pick up my phone. Let's see what's going on Instagram. Okay. Oh, let me check my emails, Facebook. Oh, all right. There's that long. Okay. Back to my phone. Like,
Well,
I couldn't stick with it this time around. Like, it's just, I don't know.
well, I mean, I think this is one of those films that you're not you're not hanging on every plot point. You know, I mean, once you've seen it a bunch of times, you can just sort of let this play in the background and just sort of tune in, you know, for the parts that you know, and giggle and chuckle, and then you get back to whatever you're doing. So yeah, I'm not saying that like, you know, you'd have to be glued to the screen every time you see it. You know, I mean, honestly, it's not that kind of a movie. Even the first time you see it, it's not like like if you got up to pee and came back, you don't got to ask everybody, what did I miss? What did I, you know what I mean? Like you just get back into it. That's all.
And therefore, I expect both of your scores to be under a 6 based on that alone.
I don't know. To me, it felt like putting on a shirt that I haven't worn in a really long time, but still fits really, really well, and it's super comfortable, but I haven't worn it in 15 years. That's how watching this movie felt. It was just like comfortable. I'm not expecting to see anything that I don't know is coming, but I sat there and I enjoyed it. It was just like the warmth of nostalgia.
Okay, but that t-shirt, it's a very comfortable t-shirt that you haven't worn in so long, but you love the way it feels. Also has written on it, I'm not gay, but $20 is $20. You're not going to rock that same t-shirt the same way you are now. Like it was funny at the time, but you're still not going to wear it and be like, oh shit.
And that is my not issue, but that is my question about this movie. Am I watching it with nostalgia glasses, or does it really hold up over time? Am I watching it because I was there? You know, I talked about, like, is this a you had to be there joke? And I was there. I mean, like I said, the vote for Pedro t-shirts and Napoleon Dynamite menu in the high school cafeteria, all that kind of stuff. People quoting it on the school bus and throwing action figures out the window. Like I lived that moment. So I'm having a hard time determining if that's why I liked it this time around, or if it really is just like that funny of a movie.
Yeah, I think for, you know, I think this is an age gap sort of thing, because like for you, this was like you know, you rattled off a couple films before that were not similar, but kind of in the same, loosely in the same genre as this one.
The quirky family movie.
Yeah,
really
and
what it is.
Yeah, and I suppose like that's like that was a time and space where, and again, you kind of grew up with it, but for me, this film was clearly kind of a throwback and kind of a look at a different weird sort of era that kind of existed and stuff like that. Let me say it another way. There's a book on my bookshelf right now that I've had for years, like literally probably since I was in high school. And it's called The Encyclopedia of Bad Taste. And in there are things like Hummel figures, TV dinners, stuff like that. The stuff of like bad 70s porn, you know. And that's kind of like, and I just sort of love that stuff, and I'm laughing at it, and I kind of like this film is an homage to all that crap, you know what I mean? So there's so many things in the background that I'm looking at probably from a different sort of lens, you know, that I'm kind of almost like from a distance, but also a kind of a familiarity as well. So like in some ways, this film for me kind of hits a different level. Like it for me, it's kind of supernatural. And I think for you guys, it might just be that these are just the comedies that we had when we were a little younger, you know?
Everybody at school thinks I'm a freaking idiot because of you.
You're gonna clean my van right now.
Get off of me, bodega!
Vote for Pedro.
Vote for Pedro.
Vote for Pedro.
I think we had some bangers growing up. I mean, me and Kyle aren't that far off in age, but if you're going to talk about a movie like this, I'd rather watch like Half Baked. That had to be around the same time. Like that
Wedding
stoner
Crashers
humor,
was the same
Wedding
year.
Crashers. Yeah. Oh my God, Wedding Crashers by a mile over this film.
Really? Not me. I don't know. I think I would take this one over that one. And that's one. I'll do one better. Even like the Hangover. Like the Hangover is one. The first time I saw it, I was hysterical. I mean, it was funny. It was great.
Yes.
But it doesn't occur to me to revisit that movie. It doesn't occur to me to watch it again. And again, I don't think I've even seen any of the sequels. Maybe like a part here and there, but that's about it. I think that's an example of like you captured something right there. You did a great comedy, but that's probably it. I would say most comedies for me, there was something. Well, do you guys remember Game Night from a couple of years ago?
Yes.
That was a pretty funny movie. And again, it was not like you're not going to run out and buy a DVD and put it on the shelf and make all your buddies watch it. But when you saw it, you laughed and it was really funny. But it doesn't occur to me to go back to it. But some do, like like the Young Frankensteins, the certain things that absolutely I'll watch again. This for me is one of those where I easily can keep watching this because it's got that rewatchability. For the same reason you're saying, like, I don't have to hang on every plot point to watch it and get it. I could just sort of pop it on and let it play in the background and chuckle and just kind of get a kick. It's almost like it's one of those. This is gonna sound like I'm starting to get carried away, but it's one of those movies where you don't mind visiting that world again, because the film does such a great job of setting up the world that they exist in, that when you watch it, you're kind of stepping back into that world for a little while. So again, this sounds like, all right, Joe's getting carried away. He's really trying to sell us on this. No, but I do feel that way. I do feel that they set up they do a really good job. I mean, it's to the point where I remember watching this movie with like my brothers and sisters, and we're all laughing, and my sister going, "When is this supposed to be? Like, is this set in the 80s?" Right? Yeah. Like, it looks like it's set in the 80s, yet it can't be if the guy's chatting on the internet all day. But my sister's like, that girl's wearing stirrups. And I'm like, I didn't even really know what that was, but that was the pant legs when they would loop around the bottom of your foot so they wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
She's like, so it does. Yeah. I mean, it feels like a place that's stuck in the 80s, like trapped in time. Like Napoleon still got the old phone on the wall with the big long cord, that he can go all the way outside with and stuff. Stuff like that. I mean, so in my mind, that I just love that stuff.
It's a very distinctive world in this movie, and it almost reminds me a little bit of some of the Wes Anderson movies, how those have a very specific look. So does this one. This looks like it could fit in the Wes Anderson universe, where everything is kind of pastel colored and everybody's really like sweet and twee. That's kind of where Napoleon Dynamite sits.
I would agree with that.
I'm kind of picking up the same thing from both of you guys. Both of you obviously like the movie more than I do. But you're coming at it from two different, age gaps. So if this is the movie that represented me growing up, I was born in the 80s, through the 90s, graduated in the early 2000s. So Joe's looking at it from the wise man point of view, like, oh, this is really funny. This is how kids grew up then, but there's a little bit of stuff in here for me too. And Kyle's a little younger than I am, so he's looking at it like, oh, I've been through this a little bit, but looking back at it, it's funny. Maybe that's where you guys are getting it and finding the humor while I'm looking at it and going, oh shit, I grew up through this. It's not that funny.
Yeah, I am having a hard time determining if nostalgia is the reason why I enjoyed this watch so much.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely kind of admit that, part of it is, I'll give you, this is going to be a weird example, and you're going to be like, where's he going with this one? But you guys have seen Ted, right?
Of course, yeah, very funny movie.
When Ted came out in the theater, the scene where he meets Sam Jones at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to walk toward him in slow motion, and the flash music starts to happen, and then all of a sudden, then he's wearing the Flash costume, then he's flying through space in the guy's mind and everything with the music, and he's on the ride with them, and he's hugging him from behind. When I saw it in the theater, I laughed so hard. People in the theater were turning around going, what is wrong with this guy? I couldn't breathe. I got like snot coming out of my nose. I can't even breathe. I'm laughing so hard. And everybody's going, what is he watching? That for me was hysterical, because it felt like it was almost like somebody writing that movie knew me in high school and was like, I'm going to bust that guy's chops. You know what I mean? I'm going to get Darlington sitting in the fifth row, and I'm going to get him.
Exactly. Yes.
You know what I mean? It was like I was the goober in high school who thought Flash Gordon was just the coolest movie ever and whatever. So I'm watching this, and it's almost like somebody's laughing right at me and busting my chops. I kind of feel like there's a little bit of that in here for me, because I feel like I could watch this movie and just some of the stuff in the background, like they got those pictures hanging on the wall, those terrible bad pictures, those high school pictures where like they took one profile, and then in the black background there was the ghosted image in the corner or whatever.
Yes.
And then both him and Kip have the picture hanging up, whatever. Like, I knew people who had those hanging up. Like, this is how far back we're going. So I mean, there is a lot of this stuff that I'm looking at and I'm cracking up, because like I can remember some of this stuff, I mean, even watching the two of them sitting on the bleachers in high school, just looking awkward with the knees kind of banging into each other, with the shorts and everything, looking like skinny and stuff. Like, I'm just kind of giggling at just dumb stuff like that, because I feel like I can remember sitting in the bleachers in high school, just feeling like those guys.
That's what's relatable. It's those awkward high school moments that everybody had, like this weird, how do you deal with this situation as a high school kid? That's where a lot of the humor comes from.
Yeah, and I also love there's little moments of the dorkiness, the nerdiness, like when they go to work on the farm, and the farmers are telling them about the chickens or whatever, and he goes,
all right, Lyle was the best part of the whole damn movie. The guy's an old man that you couldn't understand.
Right? Yeah. Seriously, but when he says to the guy, he goes, do the birds have very large talons? And he's like, what? Large talons. I feel like the Dungeons and Dragons people were like, I know what talons are. What do you like? Why does he know? No, those are claws to normal people, And incidentally, too, by the way, I find that the soundtrack for this movie is really good. I feel like the songs that they pick for a lot of this, some of the background score, I think is fun and it works for the film. But some of the songs that end up in here, like the last song of the film is The Promise, which is an 80s song, it's a great song,
all day today.
Seriously, I mean, it's a great song. And it's funny too, because I was never like a fan of Jamiroquai in the 90s. Like, a lot of people kind of like them, and I kind of could care less. But when he does the dance to the Jamiroquai song, I could listen to that one any day of the week, just anytime. I love that part. When my granddaughter was over, who was 2 years old, she was watching something with dancing in it, and she was starting to, you see her kind of watching. I'm like, I want to show you a dance. I played her the Napoleon Dynamite dance. I don't think she quite got it, really, but I tried.
But it's funny and it's goofy, and that's the scene in the movie that is still iconic. Like, everybody remembers the moon boot dance. Like, we all kind of that has become part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, again, there's such great moments in this film. I just kind of love it. I mean, again, not every. I like it's almost like when you're watching this film, like if somebody said to me, I don't know what the plot of the story is, like if somebody told me,
I don't know what the plot of this movie was, Joe. Please explain it to me.
I'm not so sure there is one, other than
right.
dorky kid navigates the awkwardness of high school in Idaho.
Right.
That's really, that's it. That's the plot.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of all it is. But honestly, when you have that moment where he does the dance in front of the school, I feel like that's the moment where the dorky kid makes good, like that's his time to shine. And somehow it's funny. Like, there's like halfway through the film, they get into the high school dance where he goes and gets the suit and everything. And I kind of feel like in another movie that sort of would have been like we would that's sort of the climax of the film. Like you feel like it's the climax, but that actually is not nowhere near the ending of the film. There's still plenty that happens after that, so it's really not about that. But once you get to the whole the vote for Pedro and him dancing at the school, I mean, that's kind of his moment. Like is kind of, not that he needs a redemption moment per se, but that's what that is. So I kind of feel like it really works.
It's true. Most of those high school movies usually end at the big dance and there's like a makeover or something like that.
Right, exactly.
This is not that kind of movie. This is kind of a send-up of that kind of stuff.
Joe, that's something that you brought up that we haven't even talked about. How do we feel about Pedro?
I don't know. I mean, he's just kind of there. Yeah. I don't know. Not my favorite character, not my least favorite character, just kind of there. And, he's kind of there to give Napoleon something to do, or, somebody to bounce off of. And, so now he sees Pedro, he wants to help him out. So that prompts him to do things. Yeah. But I mean, Pedro is kind of almost like an NPC in this movie,
Well, it's another one of those high school movie things where new kid comes in and the nerd takes the new kid under his wing. Like that happens a lot in these kind of movies.
I agree, but Joe, I think to me the entire movie was filled with NPCs. That's how
I am kind of surprised that I'm the one kind of gushing about this movie. I feel like I
am too.
I'm supposed to be the cranky old man of this bunch, and I'm supposed to tell you why everything sucks and nobody makes movies like they used to make them. And here I am gushing about Napoleon Dynamite.
Why are you so sweaty?
I've been practicing some dance moves.
LaFonda is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Napoleon, I'm sure there's a babe out there for you too. Peace out.
Would you want to see a sequel to this movie?
Probably not. And yeah, I don't think I would want to see a sequel. I think they would goof it up. I don't think you can. In fact, I think that, I don't know if I'm going to get the legend correct, but if you rent this, I think there's an added scene at the end. I think the DVD came out. Yeah, right. I think the film got so popular and it kind of surprised everybody that by the time it actually came out on DVD, they threw in sort of a bonus scene at the end where Napoleon rides up on the wild stallion. He says, "I tamed this wild stallion for you guys," whatever. Yes. And it's meant to be funny because it's almost like, oh yeah, all the bullshit stories that he was saying, he actually was doing. Like he's telling the stories about how he's hunting wolverines in Alaska, and everybody's like, can't tell if he's full of crap or what he is. Right. So they filmed this bit where it's like, oh yeah, he actually does all the things he says he is. He is kind of heroic in his own way or something or other. It's fun in the context of just a bonus scene at the end of this, but I feel like if they did try to do a sequel, they probably would goof it up or wouldn't really work. I know that there was a cartoon that came out, and I never watched any of it, but I know a lot of the I think most of the original cast came back to voice it. So, but I never really saw it. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, this to me is a one-time thing, and I don't see them doing a spinoff or a sequel.
Ray, did you see the post-credit scene?
I did not.
It's Kip and LaFonda's wedding, and just seeing LaFonda's family, and they're making a lot of the faces that you are making right now about the prospect of LaFonda marrying Kip. So you might relate to them.
I will say my favorite plot point was Kip's transformation going like the whole time you're doubting, like you're thinking like, oh, there's some like 500-pound sweaty, hairy, obese man on the other end of his AIM chat or whatever they were doing at the time. And it turns out to be an actual like woman. And then he comes out with like the black do-rag and all that. I'm like, all right, that's pretty fucking funny.
Can't speak for Uncle Rico, but Napoleon's and Kip's tall tales really are kind of true. Uncle Rico might be embellishing his glory days, but I mean, Kip is talking about chatting with women online, and then eventually one shows up to meet him and marries him. So yeah. The tall tales are actually true.
That's kind of a thing in here that works too, is like they do kind of spin these yarns in the middle and all of a sudden it kind of goes. It's like, oh, I didn't really expect it to go there, but it did. Right. So and it kind of works.
Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills. You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills.
How was school?
Worst day of my life? What do you think? Idiot! What kind of bike do you have?
It's a sledgehammer.
Dang, you ever take it off any sweet jumps?
What did I score Thomas Crown Affair?
Oof.
Something
It was
disgustingly low.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm just gonna say that I was in a bad mood that day that I saw that movie. So I'm gonna give Napoleon Dynamite a 3.2, and whatever I gave Thomas Crown Affair, by default, I'm gonna bump it up to at least a 4.5.
Well, you prefer Thomas Crown Affair to Napoleon Dynamite. I can't argue with that.
Yes.
All right.
I know
all right.
it's a different kind of movie, but still,
Significantly.
I definitely think I judged too hard on Thomas Crown, and I think this one is just right. 3.2 from me.
I think repentance is a good thing. So
I'm going to give this one a 7. It's not perfect.
A 7.
It is of its time, and like I said, I am concerned if it's a you had to be there kind of joke, but I was there, and I enjoyed it at the time. And watching it again many years later, it reminded me of that moment in pop culture. So it made me happy. It felt good watching it. So I can't go any lower than 7.
wow. Okay. All right. I really can't believe I'm the guy, but okay, whatever.
Go for it.
I'm giving this an 8. I think this is a great comedy. I really do. Honestly, when you talk about, will future generations get it, and did you have to be there, etc. I kind of feel like this is no different than, say, like Young Frankenstein. Like when Young Frankenstein, he goes to the door on the castle, bangs he goes, "What knockers?" And she goes, "Thank you, doctor." Like, I kind of feel like that's an old joke, that
Yes.
you kind of have to sort of, on some level get what the joke is, I kind of feel like you could say the same about this, and maybe in 30 years it won't be as funny or people won't quite get it. But I don't know. I really feel like this is a really well-crafted film where I don't see a lot of throwaway lines in this. I feel like every one is kind of written well, written funny. Yeah, I don't know. I think all of it really works, and it still kind of cracks me up to this day. And I feel like it kind of gets me on multiple levels. So yeah, I guess the crusty old man is giving this one an 8.
I have to wholeheartedly disagree with you. You're comparing the Young Frankenstein movies like that and Ghostbusters to Napoleon Dynamite, and to quote Pulp Fiction, it's not the same ballpark. It's not even the same league. It's not even the same fucking sport. These are 3 totally different types of comedies, and I would never rank it as high as you guys did, but everybody's entitled to their opinion.
For your consideration, who wants it?
I'll take it because you kind of brought this up already. It's the soundtrack. It really is. It's very eclectic, and I think that serves this movie really well because this movie is so quirky and hard to define that one type of music, one genre wouldn't fit this movie. So you kind of do have to throw everything at it in order to capture the mood. So I'm definitely going with the soundtrack.
Raymond, give me something about this film that you like.
All right, so marijuana is legal in at least 24 states in America. So if your job allows it and you're allowed to do it and you want to jive on the devil's lettuce, this could be a really, really funny movie. Unfortunately, my tastes have changed since it came out. So I'd rather watch 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh,
If you want a angsty teen movie, not even angst, but just like a funny teen movie, I'd rather go 10 Things I Hate About You over Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay. I'm having trouble deciding what my standout thing about this movie is. I really think that It's just kind of written. It's written really well. It's directed really well, but it's one of those where I can't look at this film objectively and figure out who to sort of thank for all of this, if that makes sense. I feel like everything is kind of firing correctly, and it requires like a good cast, good set direction, good performances, all of these things to really sort of work together. So I guess I'll just give it to John Heder and say, I kind of feel like to your point earlier, I can't imagine anyone else playing Napoleon Dynamite at all. I think he really nails this. I kind of wish that he was able to find more projects afterwards that really sort of capture his specific skills, etc. But yeah, I think he's just kind of aces in it. So I'm going to give it to him. But who asked you? I'm going to let Kyle go first because I have a feeling Ray's...
His rant is going to be a little bit longer than mine.
He needs to get a running start before he starts with it.
I really don't.
I don't have a lot to complain about with this movie. There isn't anything that I would do that differently. My only critique is it's really short. Like the runtime on this movie, it's barely 90 minutes. I could have spent another 20, 25 minutes in this world and give us another big moment for the characters to shine. I think Ray brought it up before. Pedro is kind of an underdeveloped character. He's just there to move the story along. So one or two more big laugh moments, I think, would have elevated this movie even more. I just think it's a hair. It's like Quantum of Solace. It's just too short.
Ray, I see you in the batter's box winding up.
Well, how do you feel about watching paint dry? Because I think this movie, I think it had the same pacing as that and just as much humor. Now, like I said, back in the day, again, I just remember this being hysterical, but it did not do it one bit of justice from what I remember it being. Rewatching it, the humor was lost. The quotes were still there, but I think of the same thing that Kyle, you kept mentioning about like the nostalgia factors is probably the same reason I just keep going, gosh, when, you know, something stupid happens in my house, but this time around was not doing it for me. So, I could complain about the whole thing, but it is still super quotable. So I'll give it that at least, but yeah, I'll complain about everything else.
That's a fair criticism. It is concerning to me. Is this movie just of its time? Are people going to discover it for the first time and enjoy it as much as Joe and me?
Do you guys remember Friends? Remember there was a character named Fun Bobby?
Oh, yeah.
And remember when he stopped drinking, he just wasn't so fun anymore?
Right.
Right, I'm going to send you some
I'm
alcohol.
the
opposite. You're like Fun Bobby when he's not fun anymore. You're like grumpy now. So I really don't have, I can't think of a lot about this movie that I would have done differently or had a problem with. I do agree that Pedro just kind of like, again, I probably never even noticed it until we talked about it. He is a little bit of an NPC where he's just kind of there. So Napoleon can sort of do his thing. So, I don't know how you fix that or if you fix that, maybe you just leave it be. One thing in this movie that I noticed that I actually had to look at, okay, what was this? I don't get it. The scene at the very end when everyone kind of like grandma's home now and we're sort of wrapping things up and they show Uncle Rico back at his van with the busted arm because Rex Kwon Do beat his ass. The girl who shows up on the bike, I had to like go on the internet and say, okay, who is that? Like what is this supposed to be telling me? You know what I mean? Like there was no reference at all to this girl in the film. And I didn't notice it after a while, but finally it started to annoy me. And I was like, okay, well, who is this? So, and the best I can figure, first off, that actress is that guy's wife in real life. But the only thing I could come up with was there was a reference in the beginning when he's talking to Kip and he's saying that him and his girlfriend broke up.
Right.
So the assumption is that I guess this is that girlfriend. But again, there should have been something in this film to tell you who she is. Maybe just show a picture of her or, a scene of her like leaving in the beginning, something. Because when you see it in the context of the film, it doesn't make any sense. That would be my only thing that I would tinker with and say, fix that. So other than that, I got no problems with this film.
Yeah, when I saw that scene, it felt like something had been cut.
I feel like I should be giving this a much higher score because this film is so beyond reproach to me. It's
so deep. It's so deep.
Again, these things are boring when we all agree. So this works. I honestly, I thought this was going to be an hour long. Just, oh, this movie's great. Oh, this movie's great. Oh, this movie's great. So I'm glad it was not like that.
No, it's always better when it's more of a debate.
Yes, I'm glad that Grumpy Ray is here to tell us why all these great movies are so terrible.
Is Trisha here?
Is that on my driveway?
That's my ride.
So that is Napoleon Dynamite. And by the way, this was as I mentioned earlier, this was a request from a fan. Chris, there you go. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about Napoleon Dynamite. And if anybody has a request for a review, we will be happy to take it. We are whores, ladies and gentlemen. We are you ask us to do a tap dance, and we will. If you have a request for a film, trust me, we will tackle it. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. This was a great discussion.
Yes, it was.
Always a pleasure.
All right. See you soon.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. You can also find our episodes on our YouTube channel. Check the link in the description. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and are considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Sir, who are we going to conquer today?
Whoever I feel like conquering. Gosh!
I think Europe is weak. I don't know. We can attack them or something. You can be emperor, maybe. As long as I have my mule.
Sweet.
Sir, we're outnumbered.
I was outnumbered by ninjas and wolverines over summer break, but I killed them all with my nunchucks. Gosh!